Hey friends, welcome back to the Rising Author Experience Show. Today, you're in for a special treat. I have my very special friend. Her name is Greta Myers, and she has been, I don't even know how to wrap it in words, to be honest with you, a mentor, an incredible friend, someone I can relate to and talk with about my faith, even though we share different faiths. So I'm really excited because not only is she an expert, a specialist in the ghostwriting world, I would consider her an elite ghostwriter, but there's so much to say. There's so much to say, so much to talk about. Today, we're going to get into the meat of all kinds of cool things. So welcome aboard.
Thanks,
Greta,
Susan.
how's it going today?
It's good. That was so sweet. You said such nice things. Thank you.
I try to be sweet. That's my whole thing, is sugarcoat everything, you know?
Yeah.
It's good to see you, friend.
Yeah.
So Greta and I met back in 2021 or 2020, forgive me. And when I started working with Scribe, and she, of course, was an elite ghostwriter there. And then we kind of built this amazing friendship over my time working there, working with a lot of authors. As I did my community management, she was helping authors really get their ideas concrete and focused and all those kinds of things. But that's what I'm excited to talk about. Greta, it's so nice to see you. So nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
I want to kind of start off by just kind of giving the audience who don't know you out there, tell us about how you first got into ghostwriting and what led you down this path.
Yeah. So before my career started in teaching, I was a high school English teacher, which I loved. I loved geeking out about literature. I loved my high school students. But it was nonstop. The grading was relentless. I taught the seniors and the AP kids, and so when I got pregnant with my daughter, that coincided with my husband and I moving across the country. We were living in Washington State. We moved to Massachusetts. And I thought, you know what, rather than get recertified as a teacher, I think I'm going to take a break from teaching because I can't be the kind of teacher I want to be and the kind of mom I want to be at the same time. So I'm just going to take a pause to just focus on being a mom. So I ended up becoming a nanny for 2 years, which was good and humbling. I remember the nanny girls called me their babysitter, and I was like, I have a master's degree and babysitting is what I did in high school. But it was good because it helped me. I feel like you'll appreciate this, Hussein. It helped me remember that my worth is not in my job description. That my worth, especially when I think about the eternal stuff, when I think about the kind of legacy I want to leave, that's so much more about what kind of person I am and what kind of character I build. And this little nanny job was forcing me to grow in humility and service, and it was forcing me to grow in really important ways. So that was valuable. But then I got pregnant with my second daughter, Gloria, and thought, okay, I need to find a job I can do from home. So I started looking for job postings, and I found this intriguing job posted by a company called Book in a Box, which was Scribe's old name, unfortunate name. And as I was reading through it, it was talking about, interviewing authors and building books and building ideas and organizing material. And I just thought, man, I did all that as a teacher all the time. This sounds so cool and so fun. And so I saw at the bottom of the post that over 75 people have applied for this job. And I thought, well, it's a long shot. I'm a nanny, but I'm going to go for it. And I had so much fun doing the application. Having the opportunity to talk about words that I geeked out on. Like I remember being like, Jubilee is my favorite word and feckless is my most tragic. And I was just like, can I just celebrate the fact that I have a reason to write these sentences at all? Anyway, I went through the application process. It was extensive. It was 4 months long. At the end of it, the final interview, I remember talking with Megan, who I know you know, and I realized she was offering me the job, and I was like, oh my gosh, I saw that 75 people have already applied for this job. And she said, how many? And I said, 75. And she said, Greta, over 1,000 people have applied for this job.
Wow.
And I was like, oh. So that was, I think, an indication to me that I had sort of stumbled into this field that I initially felt a lot of imposter syndrome about joining. But
Sure.
but as you know, as the years went on, I ended up realizing, and this was something that gracious leaders affirmed, but the combination of the writing with the relating was rare, and I think I do both of those things well. I love the writing process. I love organizing ideas, but even more than that, I love the chance to connect with authors and to learn from them. My favorite
Yeah.
part of my job is that I'm constantly learning. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I learned how to buy our first home when Jeff and I were buying our first home because I was writing a book
Right.
about it, and
Yeah.
you know, things about health, things about leadership. I mean, I love the opportunity to connect with people who are passionate about the information that they want to share with the world, and I get to help
Mm.
them disseminate that and break it down and elaborate and level it up. And anyway, so it ended up being a really great fit. And I've found, you know, thank God I found a lot of success in doing it, and it's been super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that so much. And I relate to that quite a bit. I mean, I started at
Mhm.
Scribe to write my book, of course, like you know this.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
again, I always share this. Like I also discovered a huge part of who I am. It really I felt like I broke deeper into who I am and what I wanted to continue doing. And
Mm.
I fell in love exactly with what you said with like, obviously I wasn't a writer and I wasn't a ghostwriter. I wasn't, any of those things. However, I was like, there's community here. And I
Mm.
think that's a part of me that's
Mhm.
kind of been missing in my life, in my work, was I love gathering people. I love being
Yeah.
around people. I love being a
Yeah.
go-to person for like,
Mhm.
who do you know that knows that person? Like
Mhm.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love people. I love communication. I love, um, introducing people to one another. Like, and I just didn't know where to put that. And I never really, like, I had an idea, but I didn't realize it was going to be in what you see around me, like books. And I was like,
Yeah.
of course it's in. Like, I love being around people who have all this knowledge, right? Like about how to buy
Mhm.
a book, like, or how to buy a house, how to buy a car, whatever,
Mhm.
how to
Mhm.
be healthier, how to approach your faith on a higher level, how to,
Yeah.
whatever it was, whether it was memoir or whatever. Like, I just found so much depth in people
Yeah.
that you didn't have, like, you don't have these type of conversations like on a regular basis, like at the
Yes.
park with someone random, right?
Right.
But you
Yeah.
did find it here. And I love
Yeah.
that part of humanity where I can like sit there and be like, but why? But why? And then just go deeper
Totally.
and deeper.
Yes. Yeah.
um,
Well, and
yeah,
it's the discovery piece too, right? It's like
yeah,
it's not just when you're around people that are writing books, there's so much opportunity to go deep, right? But
yes,
it's like what you described of realizing these new things about yourself and about your goals in the process of writing books. Like there's so much discovering that happens, like both about the nature of a content, like, oh, that's how I can share this idea. Like I've been trying to get people to understand this. That's how to do it. But it also happens personally. And
mm,
like, you know, it was those light bulb moments that I loved in the classroom, and I get to continue to see that in work with authors.
yeah.
And I know that you see that all the time too, because you are the
Oh
hub
yeah,
of this wheel, and so
yeah,
many different connections and sparks, you know,
yeah.
unfolding.
It's like addicting to me. I love it. Like
Hmm.
it's maybe addicting is not the right word, but I love it because I do feel um I feel like I can be of service to things
Yes.
that I feel like
Things that,
really matter
yes,
to people. And
100%, 100%.
I don't know. I just deeply recognize how much that mattered to me, especially after I wrote my book and published and all these things. And I was like, wow, this is such a profound feeling of like spirit meeting body meeting intellect.
Hmm.
And how can I do more of this? Where
Yeah.
can I do more? Where can I bring all my art and story? Where can I bring my like ideas of resilience to? And I really found it in author community. And it was like, honestly, Emily did me the best favor on the planet by recruiting me into Scribe. Because at first I was like, what do I have to offer? Like I don't even know how to write. Like, you know. But being an author is so much more than the writing, right? It's an expression, and I'm forever in gratitude for that, and you and Lisa and Tucker and everyone else that I got to be around and learn so much from in this community. And I just felt so fortunate, and I still do, and it's incredible. I do want to talk about, this is something that I feel like you and I really like went deep on every time we met in Austin, and like got to hang out a little bit and like over food or whatever. But I love how you infuse this very interesting part of who you are into your work as well. And you and I both have, I would say, an interesting relationship with our faith. And I love how you've always chosen to, I don't want to say prioritize, but put that as a sort of filtration system through your work, right? I just want to go there a little bit. What are some of the biggest challenges you face when trying to, I guess, like I said, infuse those kind of elements into your writing, and with authors that you get to work with?
Yeah, I love that you brought this up. Thank you for bringing this up. I mean, my faith is so important to me. And that is, it's I love that we've bonded over this, because my faith is different from your faith, but because of the centrality of our focus on something that is divine, we've really had a lot to share and connect about. So yeah, I mean, my faith really defines everything that I do. It defines my purpose. It defines how I engage with people. It determines the projects that I take on. So before taking on any project, I pray about it, and I journal, and I really, even if a project is shiny and looks good, like that's still something that I want to really meditate on and really pray over. And then once I've said yes to a project, there are scriptures in the Bible that talk about, in whatever you do, do it with all your heart. My dad, when I was growing up, he would say, if we were doing our chores, don't just do this for man, do it for God. And this idea that there is a higher accountability that I am called to, that I'm not just phoning it in to get a paycheck. I'm not just doing the bare minimum, that actually I am called to live into the fullest potential that I've been given, as a way to honor my Creator. And so that informs my work ethic, but then it also informs every person that I interact with, because in Genesis, it says that we are made in the image of God. And so that means that every person I engage with is touched with the divine. It means that they are loved, that they are worthy, that they were created. And God said, this one is on purpose. I love this person. And so seeing people, honoring them with dignity, and really seeking to love them, not in a weird romantic way, but
Sure.
A prayer that I used to pray actually as a teacher was, God, help me to see this person the way that you see them, and help me to love them the way that you love them. And I have found that prayer opens levels of insight that feel outside of what I would normally come up with. And so what's neat is that, because of the steps that I've been led to in prayer, even starting my business, like that is something that I would not have felt the courage to do if I had been functioning on my own. But that was something I really felt pushed and challenged to do in my conversations with God. And but it also, I think, has been behind the positive relationships I've had with authors, because I think they can tell that I care about them, and I'm going to do my best job at this, not because I owe you, because you're paying me, but because it's what I'm called to do. Like, there is a higher mission that we're both oriented toward. For them, it's to get their message out because they think it's going to help people. And I love aligning with that mission and then putting my all into it, because that's a higher obligation that I'm charged with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So well said, friend. I love that. I can't share that enough. I mean, again, like back to the conversations we've had previously, it's always been, yeah, like a central component to how we show up,
Yeah.
and it's just like, I am here to, discover more and more of my purpose. I feel like, because
Yeah.
it's not just like this one thing, right? It's the depth of that purpose, and it's like you said, like the more I am sort of engaged and allowing something higher than myself to um, expand my love, expand my understanding for others, and what better way than to hear them out, hear their stories, hear their pain, hear their
Yeah.
successes,
Mm.
hear their loves, and like, what better way to understand people, and what better way to understand the Most High, because he comes to us in every format available
Mhm.
into our conscious understanding.
Mm.
And and it's like the best gift we can give ourselves, I believe, and we've shared a lot about this, is that to, yeah, fully understand ourselves through the variety of lenses.
Hmm.
And when people come to a book, they become so vulnerable. So all the
Yes.
exterior stuff goes
Yeah.
away, and then
Yeah.
you get to like go in, and they allow you in, and like,
Yeah.
you get to see the world from their perspective, and you
Yeah.
have such a higher appreciation and
Mhm.
higher gratitude for whatever your situation is.
Yeah.
And I have yet to discover any other outlet, besides maybe painting by myself, which
Mhm.
is a very like internal thing. That's very much like another form of prayer, if you will. But
Yeah.
like, there's no other. I haven't found. I'm sure there's many others. I've just come to find it, and I genuinely believe. We talked about this before. I genuinely believe it's connected to my heritage, and
Yeah.
like, my heritage was all about learning and books and the house of wisdom and all of these, and the gathering people and community. I really even saw myself so much more when I went and visited Iraq for the first time with my father
Mm.
in 2015, and
Wow.
the way he like navigated our small town, and like he knew everyone, and, oh, that's
Oh.
where your grandpa used to come hang out, or that's where, all these things. And I was like, I not only love this
Mm.
is there's something here that I finally feel in tune with, which is
Yeah, that is
community.
you. Ah, yeah.
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 And just him like waving at everybody, and like, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm this guy in America in my little town. You know what I mean? And
Oh,
and I felt so deeper,
connected.
even, yeah, deeper connections to like my roots. And I felt like, oh, I've been on this path. This is awesome. And
Mhm.
just because now it's like in a different location, in a different language, in a different hemisphere,
Mhm.
it's still the same. And
Yeah.
that brought me so much joy. But anyways,
Yeah.
I love that we share that, and I love how much you bring it into your work. And congratulations on opening up your business and starting your business. It's been about a year now. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, it's been a year
Yeah.
and a couple months. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love I just want to circle back to something you said. I
Yeah.
loved what you talked about, the vulnerability piece.
Hmm.
When you're writing, when you're writing a book, when you're sharing your deepest knowledge, your life's work, your personal story, you have to be so vulnerable, and think about, like, you want to share that with someone who will extend love and grace and compassion and understanding, and curiosity to you, who won't tire of your stories, who will actually be an advocate for you in sharing those stories. And I think, like, it is my faith that enables me to come to calls with grace and compassion and love and curiosity and all the rest. And I don't know what kind of person I would be if I wasn't able to lead with that. But yeah, writing a book is such a vulnerable experience. How
Yeah.
incredible. I get this, I picture you, like, you describing going to Iraq, like almost discovering a piece of yourself that has just been kind of
Yeah.
dormant this
Totally.
whole time.
Totally. I
Yeah.
mean, just hearing like, just like waves of people just speaking my language,
Mm,
instead of just like my parents and like my family,
mm,
like,
man.
but like, what, just and then the culture aspects, and then like, well, this is how you drink tea, and this is how you tell them you don't want more. Like, just like little subtle things, and it's like, this is so incredible. Like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I found, I guess I rediscovered a part of me that like, I finally understood the part of me that is so interested in other people,
Mm,
because I don't know. I guess I just felt like that's such a huge part of our traditions and cultures, that like the interconnectedness of tribal and cultural and faith-based things.
Yeah.
And it's very human driven, right? Like we walk by a mosque and my dad's like, "Oh, let's go in here. There's a funeral, like a memorial thing." And I'm like, "Do you know the guy?" He's like, "You don't need to know them. You come in here and you pray and you love on them and you share tea
Mm,
and
yeah.
He's like, I may not know the person, but I guarantee you I know their cousin. I know a
Mhm.
relative, and you
Yeah.
got to pay your respect." And I just like, I love you, man. Let's go. Like it was just so beautiful, and it reminds you that you are a human and that you are a part of
Yeah.
something so much greater than you. And the more involved you are with that, and the more you are able to support and help, even if it's a smile. Like
Mhm.
my dad, I remember him saying, like, look, the best thing you can give is not necessarily money. It's not necessarily things or material things. Sometimes someone you see maybe having a bad day, and if they see your smile and they might crack a smile too, that
Yeah.
may just make their entire day. And that's probably the best thing you can give. And,
Yeah.
I always try to remember that. And, it's not always hard. It's not always easy to practice those things, but that's
Mm,
what makes them special. Right.
yeah.
But yeah, and I feel like you and I share so many of those things, because our faith isn't just about, just like, here's how you pray and here's how you do this. And
Mhm.
it's humanity. It's like, you got
Yeah.
to be a better human so that you can serve humanity. And I love that.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I've always loved those conversations with you, and I kind of miss them. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah.
As far as that's why I was like, we got to do a podcast. At least bring some of that stuff up. Um,
I love it.
but yeah, so tell me a little bit about the ghostwriting process is not easy.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how hard it could be to interview someone and hear the depth of the levels of stories and knowledge and all these things,
Yeah.
and then almost like an actor, sort of embody that person,
Yes.
their
Yeah.
tonality, all
Totally.
of these things, and
Hmm.
then act it out on paper, and like having
Hmm.
to do the writing like that. To me, I'm like, that seems so grand and
Hmm.
big. Like there's no way I could do it. Um, but I see you and Lisa and like Emily and the people that I got to be around like
Well,
do it.
and those three people
Make it look
all have acting backgrounds. Like
right, right.
Emily and Lisa and I all have theater backgrounds.
Yeah,
The acting
which
piece
is
does
another
have,
reason how we,
yeah.
yeah, another reason why we can. My wife is a stage manager,
Hmm.
so like being now, like she's a stage manager at a theater, like being around actors, like being that close, and I'm like, how do
Yeah.
you do this? Like this is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
But I always admire that. But like, how does a ghostwriter, for those who haven't worked with a ghostwriter, for
Yeah.
those out there who are aspiring authors, and perhaps there's a lot of I don't want to say like feelings towards ghostwriters or anything, but I feel like people don't realize how many books out there getting written
Oh
by
yeah.
a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's incredible. It's a gift. But how do you approach, if you were to break down the 3 to 4 phases
Yeah.
of how you break down how you work with an author, what do those phases look like?
Yeah. Great question. Well, and I think something that I've learned is that there are many different ways to cook an omelet, right? There are many different ways to approach this process, and because ghostwriters are creatives, all of us have kind of a different way that we go about it. But there are going to be four key things that a responsible ghostwriter is going to do. Someone who's going to be efficient in their process, and get the author the book that they want. And so, the first piece is the positioning piece, and this is what you and I observed in the guided author sessions when we were both still at Scribe. So the positioning, you really want to make sure that you fully understand the book that the author wants to write. And so you need to understand, first of all, what are the author's goals? What do they want to do with this book? Secondly, who's their target audience? And you better hope those things are aligned. If an author wants to build thought leadership in this area, but their target audience is a completely different segment of people. Like you want to level up your profile in academia, but you're writing for students. Those two things don't align, right? The students
Mm.
aren't going to help you level up in academia. your colleagues are going to help you level up in academia. Okay. So figuring out, making sure that those two goals are parallel, that your target audience is actually going to help you get there. But then also thinking about the book idea itself. Is that also going to help you achieve your goals? And sometimes during this positioning process, I'm factoring in other things as well. So like, for instance, I just finished, actually, we're just getting ready to launch a book for a political candidate. And he was very adamant about the fact that he didn't want his book to be a political book. But we also knew that there was a good chance it was actually going to come out when he was still in the middle of a campaign. And so he's saying, I don't want the book to be a political book. All I want is for it to bring people hope. I want to share my story in a way that helps spread hope. But I'm also factoring in the fact, yes, but we don't want to blow your professional prospects and ambitions out of the water. Like, we still are going to we want to write you a book that will do you justice as a public figure as well. So there's what they're stating explicitly, but then there's also what I'm gathering and what I'm learning about them as an individual, as a person, learning about their values, learning about their hopes and dreams. That's positioning. Then there's the content gathering, which I do through interviews. And there's a number of different ways that people can gather content, but I prefer to do it through dialogue. We're building a relationship. We're building trust. I'm able to ask questions in the moment and dig deeper. Once you've got all the material, all that content, then you need to write the book. And then, again, and this is kind of an optional stage. It depends on what publisher you're working with, what the process is. But then I also like to do revisions with the author. So we go through every piece of it and we make sure, is the voice I've written the voice that you want? Does this align with what you would say? Is this going to, when you're reading the audiobook, is this going to sound the way that you naturally sound? And ultimately, are we getting across the message that you want in the way that you want it to be said? So those are really like any book writing process should go through those different stages to get the author the book that will not only be what they're looking for, but will actually take them to where they want to go.
Yeah. Very powerful. I love that because I like it because it's a streamlined process, but it's different. It's a filtration process, but it's different for every author. And it kind of keeps this level of quality, level of standardizing what you do. So there's like a mathematics to the art, if you will, right? Yeah. And I love that because it's a science. It really is. And it's hard because, like, how long do you spend interviewing? I mean, obviously with every author, I'm sure it's different. Yes. But like, what's that interview process like? Because I feel like that's the bulk of the work in going in that depth.
Yeah. That can really range. I mean, I know some people who download it all in a weekend. They do one super intense weekend. They get it all. They do a deep dive. That can be done. But I love doing in-person visits with my authors because there's so much understanding and trust that is able to be conveyed in ways that you wouldn't be able to otherwise build. But I prefer to use that in-person time to get the big picture overview of their content so that then in our interviews, I know where to dial it in more. Like I've got the entire framework now encapsulated in my head. And now I know, okay, this portion of material is weak. We can go deeper here. I need to understand this more. I'm going to get them to spend more time with me here. So I tend to do a weekly series of calls. And we do as many calls as we need to get through the different chapters of their book. Usually, again, depending on the book, I would say like 10 to 20 is pretty normal. 20's on the high end. But some others have a lot to say, and so we take the time to do it. But other books are short and sweet, and it takes less time. Yeah.
Appreciate that. That's I think for authors who are not familiar with working with ghostwriters, the process, they are unfamiliar with, like, well, what do I do? Like, just talk to them, and then how are they gonna capture my voice? How are they gonna capture my tone? And it's like, well, how did your burger arrive so great? Like these people know what they're doing. They're great at what they do. They, not to compare ghostwriting to burger making, please forgive me, but it's the idea that just like you're an expert, and I remember this from the workshops. I remember when Tucker went through each of the people that were there, like yourself and Lisa, and sort of what your credentials were. And he kind of set the tone saying like, you know, just as much as you are good at what you do, we are great at what we do. And we have put time, energy, resources, and our heart and soul into our craft. And that's why you can trust us. And it's, you know, trusting that process and trusting that person to really capture those things. And then 99.9% of the time, they are blown away just from your edits, right? Let alone ghostwriting. They are blown away about how much you are able to do that. And it's like, because they are quality people who spend a lot of time doing this. And they're not just somebody that kind of heard you say something and then typed it. So
well, and I mean,
I just want to clarify that, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, especially, you know, with AI tools, there's a lot that can be done in terms of taking information in one form and regurgitating it into another organizational form, right? Like those tools are available now. But I think what a really excellent ghostwriter needs to be able to do is open up, you know, unlock the things that you can't unlock on your own. You know, so like if you've worked with a personal trainer or like a vocal coach or a therapist, there are moments in their interaction where you realize, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was in me. Like I didn't know I was capable of doing that. Something has just unlocked that has helped me understand this in a totally different way that I couldn't have gotten to on my own. And so that it's not just skill that an excellent ghostwriter needs to bring to the table. It's insight, it's wisdom, it's being able to say, you know, it's being able to connect the dots in ways that only an insightful human being can, right? The project that I mentioned earlier, and I know
I
that
want to dive deep into that.
Yeah. So we'll talk more about that. But you know, so this was a memoir project, and my author had all these memories from his childhood, but the real story was in his adulthood. And so there was this question of like, well, how are we gonna what of that do we use? We've got a whole lifetime to package in a single memoir. What if that is useful? What if that isn't? And so helping him identify this theme from this childhood story is actually so powerfully connected to this theme that then you're talking about in this hospital room. And so again, helping, like, not only helping them connect the dots, but then using writing to bring those themes to a way that is illuminated but not heavy-handed. I mean, there's just a lot of needlepoint embroidery that needs to happen kind of in the process.
Well said. Embroidery. Love it. That's beautiful. It really is that, though. It's very like fine-tuned, and your creativity comes in when you're needing to align things so that the reader isn't just giving away all the answers. It's like the reader's going through an arc. They're going through, and they won't know why the story mattered until later, and all those kinds of things. And I remember when I was writing my memoir, Emily was so great at helping me ensure that, you know, she's like, just tell your whole thing, and then later you'll be able to discover why this thing. And that was like not just in my book. That was, like you said, like it blew. I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that making a kite with my brother made me do this thing like 30 years later. And like, you know what I mean? It was just those little moments, but it's not until you flush those things out or somebody asks you the right prompts or the right questions or whatever to help you bring that stuff out to unlock it. And that's such a cool aspect of the ghostwriting process that I'm glad we went there. But I do want to go a little bit deeper with your current project, because I know, look, let's be honest here. I call you an elite ghostwriter because you are such. You've helped people write Wall Street bestselling books. You've helped people bring their memoirs, their knowledge share books into the world in such remarkable ways. And you're clearly very good at what you do. But this unique project that was sort of proposed to you after, especially after we kind of got hit with the loss of our work at
Mm,
Scribe, our
yeah.
amazing, company. However, we went off and started our own thing because I feel like the work is there and the people are there and the thought leadership is there. It's just people like you who want to continue extracting that from people. So, okay, so Greta, in your current project that you've been working on, I know you had mentioned this before to me. There's an amazing person who's running for U.S. Senate, and it seems to blend the things that we're talking about, like storytelling,
Mm,
faith,
yeah.
politics, and really getting into the depth of a unique story. This seems to be a big book that you're working on, and I'm sure there's been a lot of work in this. How do you navigate these complex themes in your writing and this interesting story? Can you share a little bit more about this person, and can you maybe even reveal his name and how this story kind of came to be with your work on it?
Yeah, yeah. I can reveal his name only because he identified me in his manuscript as his ghostwriter, which was such a gift. That's an amazing gift for any ghostwriter to get, to be identified when an author is willing
Yeah.
to do that. So Sam Brown is the GOP Senate candidate for Nevada.
Mm,
An amazing guy, married to an amazing woman. I became friends with both Sam and Amy.
mm,
Um, and yeah, what's interesting is that Sam is a political figure, but he set out to write a non-political book. I remember
right.
at our first in-person meeting, we actually met at my husband's church, and Sam was there with a buddy, but he introduced me to his friend, and he said he's not on my political team. You'll notice nobody on my political team is with us right now, and that's intentional because I don't want them to to influence what we do here. Like I want this to
Mm,
just be a faithful telling of my story. And Sam has an incredible story because he is someone who has literally burned alive for nearly a minute
mm,
and lived to tell about it. And now he's running for national senate. I can't think
mm,
of any other person I know that fits that description. So, so when I first heard of Sam, it was when we both still worked for Scribe, and Rose Friel, the matchmaker extraordinaire, sent me a description of Sam's project and said, "You came to mind for this project for many reasons." And she knew that I was kind of already at my max capacity, but she was like, "Will you please check it out?" And so I went to Sam's website, and it was unclear to me at that point what his political status was. It looked like he had done a campaign at one point, but I couldn't tell what was going on now. But I could see that he was, you know, disfigured. His face has suffered third-degree burns. But then he had scripture all over his website. You know, specifically he had
mm,
Romans, I think 5:3-5, which talks about the character that comes when we endure. Um, and then I read a little bit about his story. You know, I learned that while he was leading a platoon of soldiers in Afghanistan, his Humvee detonated a roadside bomb. It blew up. You know, he burned alive. And then, as I learned later during our work together, he not only burned alive, he had to get through a firefight. Like the whole explosion happened in the midst of them rushing to another platoon who was experiencing enemy fire. So then, as he is, um, I mean, as his skin is literally melting, he has to not only surrender his leadership because he was the lieutenant, so he's
mm,
surrendering leadership to his sergeants, but he's having to run and dodge bullets and scramble. And I mean, it's an unbelievable story, and that's just the beginning. But as Sam was was burning alive, he cried out, "Jesus, save me." And the way
mm,
he describes it, he said everything that he had defined himself by before that moment was gone. Like he had been a West Point student. He had been the varsity stroke at West Point, you know, on the crew team. Like he had been a leader of men. He was tall and handsome and fit and like, you know, the like fastest runner in his platoon. None of that was worth anything as he stood there on fire. And he also described the profound isolation that he felt, that he didn't know what any of his other soldiers were doing. He assumed they might be dead, they might have been killed in the explosion, or that they were responding to the enemy fire and they couldn't help him. So in that moment, when everything that he's ever defined himself by is stripped away and he feels utterly alone, he knows that the only hope he has is in his creator. And so it's this literal come to Jesus moment in the desert. And, you know, Sam was saved by one of his soldiers rushing up to him, and he heard his voice cut through this terrifying inferno of isolation and say, "Sir, I've got you." And he put him out. And then Sam, you know, that was the very beginning of this life-changing journey where he had to redefine himself physically. He'd always been this tall, handsome guy. Now he scares children when he goes out to eat at a restaurant with his mom. His professional dreams, he had been groomed and raised to pursue a career in the military. And now the military wants to retire him for, you know, a medical retirement. He had always dreamed of having a family. Now he believes that dream is going to be denied. And a really beautiful part of the story is actually his love story with Amy, and how she came to fall in love with him in the midst of some of this. But the only thing he had was his faith. That was the only thing he had to sustain him. And so it is this unbelievable story of figuring out what really matters, what is eternal, what is our hope found in, what is it anchored to, if not our identity, our accomplishments, or all of these external things. What is the source of our hope? And that is what he sets out to tell in this story. It was so inspiring. And especially because of our faith alignment, it was incredibly meaningful to work with him and Amy and sharing their story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How absolutely remarkable. And I feel like it's sort of, in my opinion, it was like destined that you got to be a part of it because of everything we just talked about. Your relationship to how you work with authors, your faith, your tenacity, your appreciation and love for the depth of story and how you get to embody that. And I can feel the energy, even like I get goosebumps just speaking about it, because that's how in tune you become. You just sharing that, imagine what it would be like having written it and going through it with him and Amy. So beautiful. I can't wait for the book. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. And how remarkably cool of him to identify you as the ghostwriter, because like you said, it is a gift, because most ghostwriters sadly go unnoticed.
Well, and that's okay. That's
okay. Like I understand that, definitely.
We're not in it for the fame.
You're all too humble, is my opinion. I want my thing stamped on every book. No, and that's the other aspect of I think the beauty that you all bring to the industry is that, you know, I'm not here to take ownership of your story or anything like that. Yeah. In fact, I want to be a ghost. I don't want to exist, and that is such a cool thing because technically you are the spirit of the book, like, you know, as far as like the person bringing this thing out and helping this person articulate and communicate components of the story in a beautiful way. But also it's like you're there whether they acknowledge it or not, and that's not the point. But that's so great of him to acknowledge you, because I tend to believe that this is going to be a huge book and potentially amazing for your work and business going forward as well. And how amazing of him to, you know, really tag you in that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. What were you going to say?
Oh, that's the kind of person he is. He's very eager to share the credit. But you know, it's funny because being a ghost plays into some of my own story, that, you know, I grew up wanting to be a famous actress, you know, that I wanted to be on stage. And even as a teacher, I had my own little mini stage, my mini world where I got to kind of be this presenter. And actually one of the soul lessons that came about for me during those 2 years as a nanny was realizing that that life's true meaning isn't about attention. It's not grounded in being
Mm,
impressive or in getting attention or in even building fame. It is in connecting with people and serving them and affirming the light and the good and the love in them, right? And so
mm,
it, like every book I do where I am not front and center, feels like this wonderful soul exercise where I get to do something profoundly meaningful that is not about me. And because it's not about me, um, there's a satisfaction that comes where I think if I was looking for that sort of praise and affirmation, I think I would miss out on that satisfaction. But then what's been amazing, and maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some serendipity in this or some providence. Um, I think many authors have then told me, "You're getting credit. Like, I'm giving you credit. I want you to have credit," and that's been a lovely thing to have too, I suppose.
yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
I love that so much, man. Again, it's kind of, it ties you back to, like, in a way you still kind of get to act on a different type of
Hmm.
platform, on a
Oh,
different type
totally.
of
Yeah,
stage, and
yeah.
yeah, and you still kind of get to embody those things. And yeah, and the Most High has a unique way of toning that to who we become, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
how it elevates what we
Hmm.
would truly want. And there's just a beautiful connection with that. And who's to say? Who's to say that you won't become a famous ghostwriter, Greta? I think. No, I'm just kidding. But what I want to get to, and thank you for sharing that really heartfelt story. I'm sure there's many people out there really looking forward to his book and his potential work in the U.S. Senate. Um, do you have? Because I can talk to you forever. We're coming up on an hour. I want to talk about two more things.
Hmm.
And one is really, if there was, up and coming sort of ghostwriters that are seeking that deeper sense of work and how they can align with those kinds of things, what would you say to an up and coming ghostwriter?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if you are looking to, well, so I guess one thing that I have found is that there are so many people looking for help to write their books. They're all,
Mm,
when people learn what my job title is, people from my church, are telling me like I'm working on a book right now, like I'm just finishing a book, and so there are no shortage of opportunities. If you start kind of putting the word out there for people in your community to start cutting your teeth on a project
mm,
like this, I think there are three things that I would encourage any aspiring ghostwriter to work on developing. And the first and just kind of most basic is skill. Work on your writing chops and organizing ideas. Um, one of the best things I did was, like, in terms of preparation for a ghostwriter, is I've journaled my entire life. Like, I've never let my writing muscles atrophy. And I think when I finally did have the opportunity to start doing this work professionally through a company like Scribe, then I was able to, like, all of those muscles were primed and ready to go and to level up. So um, one
right.
exercise that I've actually really enjoyed, and just in terms of organizing ideas, I help seniors with their personal statements sometimes.
That's so
And
great.
I mean, I did that as a teacher, and I've continued to do that every year. But it's like, in 500 to 650 words, it's a mini memoir. Like, you need to convey multiple parts of who you are within a narrative. And so it's this incredibly
Mm,
compact medium, and you need to do a lot in that medium, and you need to be mindful of your tone, and you need to convey certain information that will help you achieve your goals. And so it's this very sort of encapsulated project, but that really that's an exercise in organizing ideas. So in whatever capacity you can work on just writing and editing, also, like, edit your own work, read over what you've written and edit it, and organize ideas. So that's the skill piece. The second is the learning piece. Like, you
mm,
won't be good at this job if you don't have an insatiable curiosity about kind of everything. And I think if I show up to an author's project thinking this topic is boring, like, we're all doomed from the beginning. Like, I have to find my way in. And often the way that I do that is I make myself the target reader, or I think of someone I love and make them the target reader. And so then I'm constantly thinking about how this book is going to help my little brother, or how this book is going to help my husband, or how this book is going to help me. So that there is a very personal investment in learning this material, in internalizing this material, thinking about how to present this material so that it will have the maximum impact on someone I deeply care about. And so just working to like cultivate your curiosity and practice asking questions. Asking questions is an art that has gone by the wayside a little bit in our selfie culture, right? But just getting good at like ask people questions about things that excite them. I remember I was in a sorority in college, and every year we had to do Rush, right? We had to do sorority Rush. And so it was like leading up to Rush, where we would meet all of these new pledges. It was like socializing boot camp. And one of the things they taught us was how to ask questions. And they said, you keep asking questions until you find something that makes their eyes light up. And then whatever that thing is, just keep asking questions about that, because you want them to enjoy the conversation. And so, just practice in asking questions that get people to light up. And then now you found a way to connect. And now you just need to find your personal way to get excited about that. And so, and then the final piece is just strengthening your ability to see the good in people, to see the potential in people, to see everything that a person has to offer. Because, it doesn't matter who my author is or how successful they've been. Every single person, especially if they're writing their first book, they are scared. Like they are feeling like, who will listen to me? I don't deserve, like, who am I to share this? They're thinking of other books about the same topic that are out there. There's always a level of imposter syndrome. And so if I can genuinely say to them, your stuff matters and your particular voice matters, it's not like, that's not going to be believable if I'm bluffing. But when I can genuinely, when I can see the person the way that God sees them, when I can see the transformation that has come in their life because of the discoveries they're going to share with me, all of a sudden we're into the life-changing stuff. And I want to affirm that. I want to validate that. I want to see that. And so, for any aspiring ghostwriter, if you can cultivate that kind of love in you, in seeing people, not just for who they are at this moment, but for how they've transformed, who they used to be, and also who they can become, then you find the sweet spot for your collaboration. That's when I get to come and step alongside them and say, like, okay, we get to take the next step of this journey together. And that is such a gift. That's such an honor. And that's so meaningful. So skill and questions, curiosity, and love. That's probably what I would say. Yeah.
Very powerful, of course. It's so good because the potency of what you're trying to say, I think, is I can't help but relate to this in some way, because it's the only way to be interesting is to be interested. And like the way you become interested is by asking questions, love what's in front of you, and like admire it and like want more out of it. And the way we do that is by being present, asking, being interested. And you walk away, that person,
like, people have so many amazing things to share. People are so interested.
Yeah.
Like,
people are very interesting, and you just have to be interested in order, and then it comes back to you as in like, oh, that person was so interesting. And really, because you're interesting because you ask questions that matter to them. And I love that so much because I resonate with that deeply, even with my work today, and
Yeah.
how I get to help and support authors in their online presence world and like how to develop it and all that kind of stuff. And it's like,
You help ghostwriters
listen,
too. Thank you very
I
much.
help ghostwriters and
Yeah.
editors, you know, whoever works in the public space. I'm all
Yeah.
ears, man.
I've
Let's
been
do this.
blessed by your help. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. I love working on your project. It was amazing. And um, yeah, I added a whole component to my thing because of everything I learned from you and the crew I was surrounded by, which was coaching. And I just felt like, look, there's got to be at least 4 or 5, maybe even 10 or 12 times. Really, that's the typical where we meet and I coach you on several things and I work with you on certain things because your brand and building the stuff online and all that good stuff is just as important as how you work with people and all these. And we need to communicate that in a
Yes.
way that really resonates and people can identify and be relatable to you and your work. So I would add that, like, as a ghostwriter seeking out work, and what you said earlier, like, put yourself out there, let people know, and like, don't be afraid to take the small stuff. Don't be afraid to take
Yeah.
the just bigger than that stuff. You know, you don't have to write a best-selling book the minute you start ghostwriting, right? But
Yeah.
the key is to get those reps in, and
Yes. Yeah.
through
It's so
those reps, you'll discover your ways, your style, your
yeah.
all these things that kind of
Yeah.
come
Your
up.
process. That's big.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing that I meet a lot of authors, and of course ghostwriter, and I relate to that too, they have a lot of fears of putting themselves out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, how do I, and that's what I love coaching, because I feel like growing up a Middle Eastern boy in America, let's just say it wasn't fun or easy to some degree, but I was always curious. I was always
Mm.
interested. I was
Mm.
always, because I had to learn. I had, like,
Yeah.
that's it. Your back is against the wall, dude. You have to learn the language. You have to learn how to write. You have to learn, like, everything. And so I was always very naive, very like questioning everything that everyone was just like nonchalant, normal. I'm like, bro, putting that much water on grass is not normal where I come from. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just silly stuff like that. But you know, as I grew and I started to understand the world around me, it really gave me a ton of confidence because I didn't have a problem with asking questions.
I
I didn't have
love
a
that.
problem with going up to talk with people because
Yeah.
that fourth wall, if you will, like, broke
Mm.
because it had to be broken. I
Yeah.
couldn't communicate, you know, and because I have that as a part of a gift, I feel like I get to share what it will be like once you
Mm.
break through those walls and like
Mm.
how you start to attract the people to you and build a community around you, which is
Mm.
exactly what I did after Scribe. Because I was
Mm.
like, I'm in this pit. I'm going to put a bunch of people around me as padding so that I can work with them, you know? Um, and I think that's where I found my strengths even more,
Yeah.
you know? And
That was such a
so thank
gift
you
to
for
our
sharing that.
community. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got the gift of being in it. So, you know, it goes both ways for sure. I mean, one more thing.
Yeah.
What is something that an author can look for in a
Mm.
ghostwriter so
Mm.
that they can find that alignment,
Mhm.
um, I guess, easier?
Yeah. I mean, I think a track record of success is always good. You shouldn't partner with someone who can't point to, um, some really good work. Like there should be evidence of really strong writing, of books that have been completed. Unless, you do want to take a chance on a first timer. But then beyond that, I think it's really important to look for someone who believes in your book, because there will be a lot of moments in your book writing journey where you are struggling with a slog. It's hard work. Even when you're working with a ghostwriter, it's a long, hard process. Um, but also real insecurity when you think about releasing your book to the world. And when you're writing a book, you get to control the narrative, and there's a lot of safety in that control. When you publish a book, you surrender that control, and that can be a really scary thing. And so a lot of authors get stuck in moments of
Hmm.
insecurity and even despair. And so having a partner who says to you, this matters and you can do it, and what you have here is really good and it's going to help people and it's going to change lives, That is a really important quality to have in a ghostwriter, somebody who genuinely believes in your book. And the final piece is just chemistry. Like, you're going to click with some people, you're going to rub the wrong way with other people. You need to trust your ghostwriter. You need to trust their expertise, but you also need to trust that they have your best interests in mind, that they are genuinely like in your corner wanting to help you succeed. Because if they are in your corner, then you can trust their expertise, you can trust the advice that they give you, and they're going to get you a really excellent book. If you don't feel that confidence or that trust, it's going to be a very hard working relationship.
So powerful. And of course, well said. You're so right. That alignment can come in so many ways, but really someone who, again, is kind of back to that, really interested in your work, interested in what you're doing, passionate about it. So they're not going to phone it in. They're really going to be, in a way, going the extra mile, if you will, to make sure that their work is done so well that you are fulfilled, and answers that calling very well. My friend, I can, again, talk to you for, I don't know, maybe another 10 hours, to be honest with you. But I'm so grateful for your time and hanging out with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been super
fun. Of course. It's always fun. I told you this was going to be easy, or at least I hope I made it easy. But again, you're so easy to talk to, and you have such a vast well of knowledge that I felt like the people in our community and beyond could really benefit from understanding this dynamic work of ghostwriting at a high level and everything in between. Thank you for your incredible work. Thank you for befriending me and allowing me to grow alongside you and mentoring me in so many different ways. Thank you for all your prayers that you always send my way, even behind the messages, behind the emails. I'm very grateful for that. I'm honored to know you and work with you, and I can't wait for the future and how it all kind of unfolds.
Privilege.
Thanks again for hanging out with me.
To be your friend, Hussein. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Greta. All right.